team announcement. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our round 5 team announcement press conference with Director of Rugby, Jake White. Just to give you a rundown of the squad, and then we'll open up the session for your questions. The confirmed starting lineup is as follows: Simpiwa Matanzima, Jan Hendrik Wessels, Monique Smith, Walt Steenkamp, Ruan Nokier, Marcel Coutier, Vijay Steenkamp, Elrich Low, Emrys Papier, Johan Goosen, Wandile Simelane, Harold Foster, Lionel Mapu, Cornel Hendricks, Kedley Arendse. Coming off the bench will be Bismarck du Plessis, Dylan Smith, Jacques van Rooyen, Ruan Vermaak, Marco van Staden, Zach Berger, Chris Smith, and David Creel. We will now begin taking questions. Can we start in the absence of hands? Kenny, do you want to kick us off? I'll give you the honors. Okay, thanks, Kobus.
Okay.
You want to go again?
Yeah, Kenneth. Then
No, go for Kobus.
Okay, thanks, Lunga. Morning,
okay.
Jake. Jake, I think if I count correctly, 7 changes to the starting lineup. Was that always the plan? Or did last week's performance influence your selection for this week?
You're on mute, Jake.
Okay, yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, yep. So, Kobus, yeah, it was always the plan. You know, as I said, maybe not to have a number as a specific change-up number, but it was always the plan to rotate the squad, not even for this week, next week, and obviously going forward. You know, I think I've got to see some players play. Some guys haven't played for a while. I've got to see them play. I don't want them to lose their match fitness. And also, you know, I just think we're still not sure whether or not we're getting the best out of the group we've got. Maybe we've got to try some new guys and see if we get some energy from them as well. So yeah, so nothing untoward. We would have changed anyway. We'll change next week as well. Win or lose this weekend, we'll change next week as well, and we'll probably change for the Sharks as well before we go into our break.
Kenneth?
Okay, how's it? Thanks, Lunga. How's it, Jake?
Good,
Jake, you mentioned guys bringing some new energy. It was a pretty flat performance by the Bulls last week. Have you seen anything different this week compared to last week that maybe means the guys will be more up for it on Saturday?
Yeah, Ken, I mean, obviously, I think after you get a loss like that, anyway, you players will rally around and obviously be a little bit more focused. I think that happens anyway. But I have seen this week, it's been a good training week. We know it's a massive game. Everyone in Ireland here that we bump into tells us and reminds us about how special Thornton Park is and, you know, how tough it is to play there and, you know, how many great sides they've had that have played there. So, you know, it's been quite a good week, I think, for these young boys because we've been almost embraced in the middle of Limerick. And we've been able to get, you know, as I said, the whole feeling and the whole vibe of what it's like to play against Munster. You know, yeah, I mean, everyone reminds us from breakfast time right through to dinner time about how special it is to be here. So, yeah, hopefully that will also help us, you know, make sure that we're ready for the weekend.
Thank you, Kenny. Kobus, is that a follow-up hand?
Yes, please, Lunga. Jake, this team showed last year that it does have the ability to bounce back after a performance like that. And also, how much would that performance in Leinster or in Dublin last year against Leinster, how much will that help this team in trying to bounce back tomorrow?
Kobus, look, I mean, to be fair, we can't keep, I suppose, we can't keep going back to that Leinster game and every time we use that as a motivator. You know, we played well that day. We've played well against other teams as well. We played well against Munster last year as well to beat them at Loftus. So, look, I think what has definitely happened is that teams have now seen. I'm just thinking aloud as I talk to you. Teams take every team seriously now. There's days of I think last year no one really knew what to expect from different teams. Now you sort of you play a team and you know what they're going to do. You know how tough they are. People probably see the Bulls as, because we are finalists, they probably want to knock us over. So the pressure's a bit different too, I think, Quibus. So, I think that as much as that was a good result, a lot of the guys that are playing now weren't in that squad. So there are a few that will be able to go back and use that as a motivator. But as I said, we can't keep worrying about what happened this time last year. We've got to really try and as a group try and change what we did last week. We played poorly last week. I'm the first to admit it. It wasn't a great performance. We started badly. We played catch up. That 4G pitch was really quick for us, and we didn't adapt. We didn't adapt to the way that they played. And this week it's going to be another test. And Munster are a good team. I just thought about it when I was sitting here waiting for this press conference. I mean, there's massive amounts of test experience in that group of guys who played lots and lots of test match rugby. So when you say to me, think about that Leinster game and use it as a motivator, geez, there are a lot of guys that have played test rugby for Ireland that I'm sure can also go back to their games and get themselves up for a game like that on Saturday.
Thank you, Kobus. Ashfaq?
Hi guys, good morning, Jake. Jake, just a backline configuration. You've got a couple of changes there. Wandisile at left wing now. He played fullback previously and was a centre at the Lions. Just your thinking there, and of course the halfbacks, Ambrose and Goose.
Yeah, look, I mean, Ambrose and Goose picked themselves 2 Springboks. I think as a combination, I mean, they're both very good rugby players. So Ashfaq, I mean, I want to see how that combination grows. I think both of them are trying to get back into the national setup. Together, I think they could be a good combination. And then the other thing, Ashfaq, I mean, we have lots and lots of centres in Harold and Lionel and Cornell that can play there. David Creel that can play there now. We got Chris Smith, as in Byron Smith, who can play centre as well. So it's not a case of Simelane just going to the wing for the sake of going to the wing. I think he's a good rugby player, and I would like to see him in this backline as part of this backline with those kind of players around him. So, I've said to him, the nice thing about it, he also has aspirations of playing at a high level, and with Lekanyo at 13, who's basically entrenched as a 13, and quite rightly so, because he's a very good player. Players around South Africa are going to have to find different ways of making their game better. And a guy like Simelane, if he can play wing and centre and fullback, and he can develop as a player, he's still young. There's no reason why he can't, as I said, become a utility player that can double up anywhere.
And Jake, just quickly on WJ Steenkamp, I know he's played quite a bit of number 8 previously, but yeah, as a blindsider.
Look, I mean, it could have, like I said to you last week, I think I probably could have moved Ulrich to the 7 jersey and put VA at 8. So again, I mean, it probably could happen in within the game where they can swap roles. So exactly, I mean, the point is one can go to the edge and one can play in the middle. It just depends on how it goes. But VA is, I mean, this is a good chance for him in that combination as well. I'm quite keen to see how he plays with Marcel and Ulrich, and then we got Marco on the bench. So it'll be interesting to see how the 4 of them, interact and combine. Because I mean, the back row of Munster, you got Coombs and you got Omani and you've got O'Donoghue. I mean, they're very good back row. So I've got no doubt that the 4 guys we have in our back row for the weekend are going to have their hands full.
Thank you, Ashfaq. We will go to Leighton.
Thank you. Hello, Jake. Jake, just in terms of you saying that you will mix things up over the next couple of games, are you then hopeful now that this Munster game will provide that spark where, despite making the changes, you can get that winning consistency going. Seeing that it's what 1, 2, 3 games, then there's a massive break, and you have to find a way to go into the rest of the home games after the Sharks with some more momentum.
Yeah, Leighton, I suppose that is exactly what all coaches are doing. I mean, you look at all the teams. I looked at the Sharks this morning. I looked at Stormers team. You know, they've also rotated, got kids off on the bench. You know, the Sharks have got Springboks on the bench. And I think everyone, I think all the coaches have seen that from last year. It's not about picking the same 22 every week, because it's a long season. It's a tough season. We haven't even started the tough part of the year yet, is when Europe starts as well in December and January. So, yeah, it's a juggling act, as you quite rightly say, of making sure you can change, keep some winning momentum, get some combinations going, keep the spirit, you know, high in the team, where the players feel as though they've got some opportunities to play. They don't just hold tackle bags all week and never get an opportunity to play. And looking at the schedule, we go home and then we have 3 weeks off, I think 3 weeks or 4 weeks off after the Sharks game when the Boks are away. So again, another, I suppose, juggling act the coaches have to deal with. You know, some players will be away in the SA8 tour and the Springbok tour, which means they'll play lots of rugby. And there's obviously a risk of injuries, etc., etc. So therefore, you've got to be planning now in case you don't have your perfect 22 every week. And you know, this weekend will be a good test for us. I mean, I say it to you guys every week. We're very, very young. You look at our front row. You've got Simpiwe's the oldest player in our front row is 25. You know, Rowan Nokia is early 20s. Ulrich Low, early 20s. Via Steenkamp, early 20s. I mean, they're talking about a team playing Munster in Munster with 5 guys in the forward pack that are 25 years old or younger. That, you know, that 10, 15 years ago, that would never have happened in South African rugby. You wouldn't be able to put a team like that on the field. But saying that, we've done well. We've grown a lot as a group. We've probably far exceeded our expectations last year. And we have different pressures now. We have pressure where people, you know, obviously see us as a good team, and they prepare probably differently, and their mindsets are different. So the challenges are different. So yeah, it's a good learning curve, and it's a good learning lesson for us, I think, Leighton.
Members of the media, please, you're encouraged to keep your microphones off so that we can make the audio and video available to the broadcasters. So please just be mindful of that. Thank you. Tando, I don't know, you had your hand up, but it's now lowered. Does that mean you're covered?
Morning, Lunga. Can I go ahead?
Yep.
Yes, please.
Thanks, mate. Morning, Jake, and morning, guys. A quick one, Jake. I mean, how proud does it make you as a coach, you know, looking at the Northern Hemisphere tour and knowing that a couple of your young lads that you've just spoken about have been back and forth, you know, to the national setup, and looking at the possibilities now for a couple of them to even go back there, your Spoon Corsies, you know, trying to come back and go back there. And I mean, that probably also breeds good competition amongst your squad. And the fact that, I mean, the South African teams all in the top 8 of the competition at the moment, how proud does that make you as a coach at the moment, working with a young group, but a big group?
Thunder, yeah, that's look, for me, I can only speak for my group. I mean, and I just earlier mentioned to you, I mean, we got, you know, I've been lucky enough to coach many teams. I've been lucky enough to coach in different countries. This is a very young group of players. I think that one of the things in South African rugby is and I've said it to you guys, that the age groups between 26 and 30 years old, those players are all overseas. You know, if you put into the Bulls side now guys that were at the Bulls, and you've got guys like Ergier Snyman and Lou de Jager and Jason Jenkins and Andre Liebenberg and Andre Pollard and Jesse Creel, and those are the age group guys that would have played for the Bulls 10 years ago. And would be a completely different team, Thunder. It would be a completely different change room. It would be completely different atmosphere. You'd be coaching mature guys, some with kids, married with kids. You know, now I'm coaching guys who've just graduated, you know, out of the under 21s. And it's a very different makeup in the change room. So to answer your question, it's fantastic that this group of Bulls players are are now coming through the ranks. It's wonderful that a guy like Aldrich Lowe as a young boy has become a Springbok. A guy like Kainan Moody's become a Springbok. You know, Kurtley Orange has become a Springbok. I mean, they're young, and that means that if we can just hang on to them for the next couple of years and we get that age profile up, you know, then we'll have a strong team. You know, unlike the other teams, you know, you look at and I'm comparing the South African side. You know, you've got lots of Springboks in the Sharks team. You've got seasoned Springboks in the Stormers team. You know, the other team that probably full like us would be the Lions, also generally quite a young group. But to answer your question, I'm very proud. I'm very proud that these guys are coming through. The challenge just is, as I said, which we're working on with the CEO, etc., is to make sure that we can keep them for long term, so that we can have you know, we don't just become a conveyor belt for players that come in and leave and play for other clubs in Europe. So hopefully we'll get that right.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you, Tando. We will go to Percivale.
Thank you so much, Lunga. Goeiedag, Jake.
Percy?
Jake, ek herhaal maar gou van 'n vraag net so kortliks. Jou denkwyse aan agter die veranderings wat jy maak aan jou span, veral iemand soos Johan Goosen wat daar is. Jake, in die tweede deel van my vraag, en dis 'n belangrike vraag, I ask this question with the utmost respect, sir. Munster, 'n span wat tans bietjie sukkel op die oomblik. Hulle is nie waar hulle wil wees op die puntelerie. Hulle gaan nie die naweek bekommerd wees of enige simpatie toon teenoor Jake White se jonger span nie. Hulle gaan wel vol punte kry teen hierdie Bulls span. Wat 'n uitdaging verwag julle teen hierdie Munster span die naweek?
Ja, so kom ek stel dit so. Ek dink jy vra en is nie sensitief at all nie. Dis eintlik die waarheid, Percivale. Munster is 'n helse groot klub. Jy weet, as jy vergelyk met sokker spanne, jy weet Liverpool's en Man United's en Barcelona's en daai spanne, Munster het European titels gewen. Jy weet, hulle is een van die groot spanne in die wêreld, rugby spanne. So ons is nie, hoe kan ek sê, ons is nie, what's the word, Johnny? Ons is nie, we're not doubtful or under illusions. Onder illusie dat dit gaan maklik wees nie en hulle gaan simpatie vir ons wys nie. Ek weet, hulle gaan vir ons kom, hulle rus teen die muur, hulle het sleg begin, jy kan maar dink die druk wat hulle kry, jy weet, ons verloor 1 game verlede week en dit voel of ons, jy weet, nou bietjie moet ons moet nou bietjie opstaan en bietjie wys. Kan jy maar dink as jy 3 games verloor het, hoe voel hulle? Jy weet, so ek dink dit gaan 'n ongelooflike groot game wees vir al twee spanne. Ons gaan probeer om, jy weet, weer op die wenkant van die game te kom. Hulle is tuis. Ek dink is die eerste game wat hulle nou op Thomson Park speel. Ek dink hulle het laas in Kok gespeel. So ek dink jy weet, dis die eerste keer wat hulle tuis speel, die mense gaan uitkom en vir hulle skree. So ja, dit gaan 'n baie groot game vir ons spelers wees. En ek sien uit. Ek dink is nog 'n toets vir hierdie jong ouetjies om te sien waar is hulle in die, jy weet, in die rangorder, waar staan hulle? Daar's 'n einde van die jaar Springbok span en SA span wat gaan toer en hopelik as hulle hierso kan, hulle speel Munster die SA span oor 'n paar weke hierso in Kok, so miskien kan 'n paar van hierdie seuns bietjie vir SA keerders wys hulle is goed genoeg om te speel. So dis weer eens 'n, jy weet, ek dink 'n goeie ding vir ons om vir ons dit te gebruik as 'n motivering. En die feit dat ons daai veranderings gemaak het, jy weet, soos ek sê, Ambrose en Johan Goosen probeer baie hard om terug te kom in die nasionale groep. Hulle albei was Springbokke en ek dink saam gaan hulle, jy weet, gaan hulle hard werk, nie net Saterdag maar deur die volgende paar weke om seker te maak hulle kan weer terug in daai nasionale groep kom.
Baie dankie, Jake, en sterkte.
Thank you, Percy. We will go to Simon.
Thanks, Lunga. Hello, Jake.
Hello,
Jake, I'm going to ask 1 or 2 questions. First of all, going back to what you said about Munster, you as a coach, how much does Munster really miss a guy like Johan van Graan that went to Bath, first of all? And secondly, taking into consideration, they're a real, if you have a look at the stats, they're a real nuisance at the breakdowns. But on the other hand, you're good poachers, especially also at the breakdowns. I think the stats shows that you're quite up there as far as that is concerned. That's the second question. The third one, the ref, Mike Adamson, I see he's quite an experienced guy, 64 URC games under his belt. Just your comment on that, please.
Okay, so firstly, look, I think I don't know about, I mean, obviously I'm not involved in all the history here in terms of coaches. I would say that, I mean, obviously they've had some fantastic sides. Rassie was here as well, so they've had some good coaches. And I think by their own admission, when you speak to them, Simon, they're probably disappointed where they are now as a club. Even just chatting to the locals, they know it's not where they want to be, which is obviously normal. But let's be fair and say this, Simon, that they're going to eventually get it right. I mean, they've got good players. I think a lot of their players, not a lot, but few of their players were involved in that Ireland A side that went on tour to South Africa. I think they've come back. It means that they're going to have some more players to choose from this weekend. To be fair as well, I think if you look at the last couple of games, a lot of the Irish players have been rotated. I'm talking about national players. They've been rested. Not only for Munster, but for Connacht and for Leinster and for Ulster as well. They haven't played all their best players every week for, obviously for reasons of player welfare, etc., etc. So as the tournament gets into the back end, you'll start seeing the best players playing for each club. You'll see the strongest teams running out for each club. So I've got no doubt that Munster, as they get further into the competition, they will get better and better and better. I mean, a guy like Ergia, I think some of the guys saw him here, he's about 2 weeks away from playing. All of a sudden, he's going to add a massive amount to their team as well. So, yeah, so that's the first bit. The second bit is, in terms of the breakdown, I mean, I suppose the one thing it is the weather will play a part tomorrow. If it rains and it's slow, it'll be completely different to last week playing on a 4G pitch where it's so quick and you can't really get your hands on the ball in terms of the breakdown. So it'll be interesting tomorrow how Marcel and Ulrich and those sort of players can get involved in the breakdown battles. And then obviously we got Veja and Marku that will also have to play a part in that. So yeah, that's what Simon, from a breakdown point of view, I think it is going to be a massive part of the game tomorrow because I think the weather's going to play a part. And then Adamson, I mean, 64 games. I think Tappa's made it clear when you do talk to Tappa that he wants to put the most experienced referees in the big games. He would consider this as a big game, Bulls versus Munster. And I've no doubt that Mike Adamson has been given this game based on the fact that he is, obviously very experienced. He obviously understands the pressure that comes with both teams. I mean, I said it just now, Simon, they've lost 3 of their 4 games, so they would be feeling pressure. And they're at home first time at Thomond Park. So yeah, I think it's obviously it's a selection that Tappa's made based on the fact that he genuinely feels that the referee would understand the pressure that's coming in a big game like this one this weekend.
Thanks, Jay. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. We will go to Dylan.
Thanks, Lunga. Hi, Jake. You've spoken about the youthfulness of this team. In that view, it must be quite good to have a guy like Harold Forster back sort of fit and firing and playing alongside Lionel Mapu. That's quite a fairly experienced midfield that sort of served you quite well in the past. How crucial are their 2 roles for this game?
Dylan, good question. And I tell you why, because that's part of the coaching understanding. When you get combinations, you look at successful teams like the Crusaders, even Leinster, teams like that, the combinations that they have are crucial. You get a guy, I'm just using example, Walt and Ruan have played many, many games now together. Now, when I say in our terms, many, many games, but that's not close to the amount of games that certain other combinations of other teams have played, whether it's the back 3 or whether it's the back row or whether it's the locks or whether it's the front row. I mean, that's for me is the benefit and the bonus of having a settled squad. So Lionel and Harold have played 3 Super Rugby finals. They've probably spent hours and hours and hours training together at the Lions and now at the Bulls as well. And you can't put a price to that, Dylan. That's they know by looking at each other what they're thinking. They play off each other. They react off each other. And that is the thing that we're trying to get to with the Bulls is over time having a settled back row combination. And if you swap 1 or 2 guys, then they still should be settled, And that's the one area that I do feel when I do bring Harold back, and he does play with Lionel. I get that, I get that confidence that that combination is tried and tested. I mean, again, I can't play them every week together. I mean, a guy like David's got to play there, and a guy like Cornell can go to 13, and even a guy like, as I said, Kane and Moody can eventually move to 13. But sometimes when you do have settled combinations, Dylan, like those two, it does give a coach a lot of confidence that you can, especially in a big game like this, to have Goosen and Ambrose, who both Springboks, and then those two together as a combination, and then obviously Kirtley at fullback, does give the coaching staff a lot of confidence.
Thank you.
Simon, is that a follow-up hand? If so, you may go ahead.
Apologies, Lunga, I'm covered. Thank you. I'll take
President
it.
Cyril Ramaphosa
All right.
paying homage and
Thank you,
congratulating
Ashfaq.
the South African Revenue Service.
think
And
we've got
right at
Um,
the beginning of the
again,
Ashfaq,
speech,
can I just ask you to
harking back
hold
to
for me? Let me
the
mute,
years.
please. Thank you, Ashfaq. Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Lunga. Jake, just in terms of the forward pack, you said afterwards last week that perhaps Glasgow won that physical battle and the guys were a bit lethargic. How do you change that kind of thing within a week? I mean, I know you've got two new props here as well who really did well when they came on in the second half.
Ashfaq, I mean, that's the $1 million question, I think. How do you do it? Look, we've just spent a lot of time talking to them, spent a lot of time talking with the coaches about spending, some extra time with the forward pack, getting them to understand the importance of not only this game against Munster, but also about being able to front up every week. I think that is, the old adage is the forwards win the game, the backs decide by how much, Ashfaq, and that's never going to change. Tight fives are the ones that are important, and we probably didn't, as I said last week, we probably didn't play as well as we could. I think we probably let them bash us at the breakdown. They stopped our maul, and yeah, I mean, and teams will do analysis, Ashfaq, and they'll look and see and say, look, you play the Bulls and you stop them all and you get stuck into them at the breakdown, then you got a chance of breaking their rhythm, which is exactly what happened last week. So what we've done, Ashfaq, showed them some of those clips, just re-highlighted the fact that we need to get those things right. Russell's worked hard this week with Vanna Kruger on making sure the forward pack understands. It's not like an international side where you can make whole pack changes and bring in some new guys, whatever. We have what we have, and part of the challenge is these players have to learn that if they're not up for it and they're not ready for big games, you're not going to win. So I think we learned our lesson last week, and as I said just now, and it's not taking anything away from anybody, but this is a massive game. Munster in Limerick, first time at home, backs against the wall. We're going to have to roll up our sleeves and play tomorrow. There's no freebies tomorrow. So if you thought last week was tough, this week's going to be a true test.
And also adapting to the referee's interpretation, Jake.
Yeah, Ashfaq, look, I mean, I think everyone that's in this competition knows that, it's tough to win away from home. Whether you ask those teams when they come to South Africa, or whether you ask South African sides when they play abroad, it's tough because, people would say the referees are different. Maybe it's the crowd, maybe it's the travel, maybe but the whole package is, it's tough, and to be a referee, I mean, the interpretations are different in the North. We've said it from the time that, I mean, that's also never going to change. I mean, the reality is their game, the way they play it, and the surfaces they play it on, and the conditions they play it in, are very different to how we play rugby. I mean, look what's happening now in this tournament. When we go home in 2 weeks' time, we're going home to summer, 35 degrees and sunshine. They the next couple of weeks are going to go into snow and minus degrees. So, I mean, just by that nature, the shape of the game and the way that you play it is obviously different, and therefore the interpretations will be different too, Ashfaq.
Thank you, Ashfaq. Mubin?
Hi, good morning, Jake. Jake, you spoke about this game being a massive game. So is this essentially a must-win game for you tomorrow?
Yeah, Mubin, every game is a must-win game when you're a coach. You must understand that. I think, and listen, I mean, it's every game you need to win, but it's a massive game because, I mean, when last have Munster won, lost 3 out of 4 games, I can't remember, and playing them in Munster, doesn't matter which team you bring here. This is a tough place to play. I think people would say the same about Loftus, and that is something that people protect. So in Mabin, yeah, it's a must win, I suppose, for them as well. It's a must win game, and that's why it's such a massive game as well. But saying that, Mubin, I also know that last year we lost 5 out of our first 6, and we ended up, I mean, within 1 or 2 points of hosting the final. And the margins are so small. Had certain calls gone certain ways in other games, the whole 8 would have changed. So this is a long tournament. This is not, we're not going to lose the tournament tomorrow, but we can actually help ourselves win it tomorrow. That's I suppose the difference of these sort of competitions that go for the next couple of months.
Thank you so much, Coach. Thank you so much, members of the media. We will share the recording in a few. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Klaus.
Yes, Jack.